Welcome to the Take Action Now Summit. You will discover groundbreaking strategies for personal and business growth with leading experts and innovators. Today, transform forward. Step into 2024 with confidence. Strengthen your network, build relationships, and develop awareness and skills. Join our 21 world-class speakers and experience inspiration, hope for your future, and an elevation of your ambitions. Inspired Choices Network, our summit hosts, are excited to have you here.
Did you know that your hidden trauma can be robbing you of your peace of mind, your loving relationships, your health, and even possibly millions of dollars? And did you know that everyone on the planet has hidden trauma, especially after the events of the last 3-4 years? I guess we probably need to start with, what is hidden trauma? Because we all know what active trauma is. You know, you get in a fight with somebody, you have an accident, somebody's mean to you, it creates a trauma. Hidden trauma is emotions and things that you have hidden, that you've stuffed away, that might even be passed down from your generations, from your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. It can be carried forward from other lifetimes and existences where you have lived before. So whether this trauma originated from personal events that happened to you at some point in your life, such as childhood or teens, or even as an adult, the energies of that trauma get stored somewhere in the tissues of the body. Most of us are brilliant at stuffing emotions somewhere, and then they collect. And then they get triggered by somebody saying something or observing something out into the world, and you have these negative thoughts, these knee-jerk reactions that don't feel good, and you recognize they don't feel good, or it takes you down a road of anger or frustration, or kind of backing away from something that you really want to do because it feels too big and too scary. That is the result of hidden trauma. If you're in a relationship and conflict, something comes up and you have a conflict that makes you feel like backing away or triggers you to just explode, that's based on hidden trauma. And we can't figure out why we want so badly for something to happen, especially if you're a business owner. If you find yourself wanting to be out there, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard in a really big way, and yet you can't seem to get your message correct, you can't seem to connect with the people that you want to connect with, or that you find yourself shying away from opportunities or self-sabotaging in some small way, that's your hidden trauma. What happens, especially the biggest hidden traumas, are those from our generations. It's from our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors. And what happens is their trauma gets imprinted into their DNA and RNA, and then it gets passed along in the cellular structures as a programming. It's how our genes begin to express, either positively or negatively, for all kinds of health issues, diseases, things like that. And even science is finding that trauma can be passed down cellularly from generation to generations. Especially recently, scientists have been looking at Holocaust survivors and how their experiences have programmed their subsequent families for certain types of deprivations, how their bodies are actually reacting to food and other circumstantial traumas, things like that. But what happens is this programming that's called epigenetics, and it's based on our environment. It's also based on the energy, the programming that we're receiving from our ancestors. And this is directly from the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC here in the United States. Epigenetics is a study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible and they don't change your DNA sequence. But they can change how your body reads a DNA sequence, which affects how the genes express. And you can turn your genes on and you can turn your genes off. This is the newest, latest science that is talking about how our emotions, how our environments, how our thoughts and feelings are actually creating our reality. This is really important, especially in the face of what every single person on this planet just went through over the last few years. We were profoundly imprinted by the media, by our governments, saying, you know, you're going to get sick, all of the fear mongering that happened, the shortages, especially in the United States where I live, that triggered those ancestral experiences of famine and hunger and war, turning in your neighbors, for example, for not wearing a mask, goes back to all kinds of different lifetimes and experiences, or even your ancestors of being turned in by your neighbors for not being, quote, acceptable in some way. The control by governments. The list is so long. And if you're into, if you believe in reincarnation, which a big chunk of the world does, those lifetimes and existences where we have lived in the past also affect how we deal with hidden trauma. Because when our soul comes into this lifetime, we are often carrying those imprints of traumatic events from other existences, other lifetimes. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Michelle Manning, and I'm the author of Quantum Soul Clearing, Healing the Scars Life Leaves on the Soul. And I'm the founder of the Quantum Soul Clearing process, which is a practical and spiritual healing technology that releases this hidden trauma. And this was a process that was given to me by Spirit over the course of a couple of years. And what I was shown, what I was told, is that we know what we're feeling. We may not recognize what the programming is, but we all know we're feeling something that doesn't feel good. Take a minute and just drop into your body. Feel your feelings. What comes up? And if you've got a piece of paper and a pencil, especially in your workbook, write down one of the top emotions that you're feeling right now. Got it? And then with that emotion, let's say it's frustration. What is that frustration saying to you in your head? What is the next? I'm feeling frustrated because that means that I am. And this is an exercise that you can go through and take. It's interesting what our minds believe, and it's based on our programming. It's based on the programming that has come to us through our genes, through our DNA. So my experience, and which led me to this discovery, this book that I've written, is that I was profoundly bullied as a child and as a teen. And I was absolutely brilliant about stuffing that pain away until I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease in 1986 that literally hit me like a ton of bricks overnight, and I couldn't walk. And within a few short years, I was bedridden and was just terribly sick. And I had 2 small children. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to raise. My youngest daughter would come to me, you know, as her dad was taking her to school in the morning, and she'd say, "Mom, are you going to be here when I get back?" And she wasn't asking if I was going to be home. She was asking if I was going to be alive. And to this day, it just, I just feel like Oh my gosh. And I'm sure as a parent, you may also relate to how traumatizing that can feel. The problem was with this diagnosis of an autoimmune disease, Western medicine completely failed me because they were trying to medicate something that didn't have a cure, because the cure was identifying all of the trauma, everything that had gotten stuffed into my body and that was making my genes express into a form of an autoimmune disease. So because Western medicine failed me and the root wasn't just some organism that Western medicine is really good at handling, it was all of those feelings and experiences that were causing me profound pain. And my body had to find a way to release that emotional pain so that I could begin to heal. I had this really interesting experience, and this was really the beginning of my journey forward. And I was sitting on the couch, I was watching Oprah, I was, and she was talking about autoimmune disease, specifically lupus. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to go pick up my kids from school. And I jammed my feet into my tennis shoes. And I've always had a problem from the time I was tiny. I mean, little, I couldn't stand things touching my feet. So I shoved my feet into these new shoes and I yanked down on the laces. And all of a sudden, I have this hologram that opens up on one, in front of me. And it's of me as an old woman somewhere in the Middle East with my feet wrapped in rags. And simultaneously, there's this other hologram over on this side of me as a small child going, get the shoes off, get the shoes off, get the shoes off. And I realized that those two experiences were intricately connected. And then I was very clearly aware of also being in my living room, experiencing these two things with the TV running, and in the back of my head, this big booming voice said, there is a cure for this. And all of the holograms just kind of flattened, they just disappeared. And I'm standing there looking at the TV, and I slowly sit down and I think, something really special just happened. I am not sure what that is, but wow. So ultimately, that search for the cure was my ticket into discovering this entire world that hadn't existed for me up until that moment. I realized that there was so much more going on, and that Western medicine did not have the answers for me that I absolutely required. Ultimately, I started taking all kinds of classes in herbal medicine, homeopathy, nutrition, into energy medicine. I took science classes and math classes and anatomy and physiology, trying to understand and to really get a grasp on this larger picture. And you have to understand, this was 1986. This was long before the internet, and is long before I ever owned a computer. So I was going to the library. I live in Utah, and I would be down at the University of Utah looking up science things and trying to find answers, and going to the public library and looking at esoteric material and mysticism and spiritual things. And ultimately, what I realized and what I was shown is that science and spirituality are two sides of the exact same coin. I ultimately left a relationship that wasn't healthy for either one of us, and I met my second husband, and we moved to Colorado in 2001. And this is where my personal transformation really began in earnest. I was downsized from my corporate job, and I decided to really focus on me, on my gifts and my purpose. And I started taking even more spiritual courses and development and learning about healing modalities. I had been, had been a massage therapist. I'd been doing all kinds of different things. I'd worked with clients, but it was such a miraculous time for me because it allowed me to really more deeply understand who I was, what my gifts and talents were. And all of this information started to come together. And ultimately, in 2007, I was in deep meditation, and I had been practicing this particular modality. And it was like, okay, I love this. It helped me research and look for hidden things that were going on with my clients, and they would heal very quickly. But it was one at a time, one at a time. And I thought, you know what? There are almost 8 billion people on this planet. There has to be something that allows this to happen more than just one person at a time, because it's going to take forever to get to every person on the planet. So I'm deep in meditation, and what I heard was, you know what you feel. Everybody understands that they have a negative emotion. They may not be able to identify it. And interestingly, Brene Brown says people have generally 3 feelings. They're angry, they're pissed off, and they're happy. Or they're sad. 4 feelings. And I had to laugh because our range as human beings is so much bigger than that, but we have been kind of channeled down into believing we're angry, we're happy, or we're sad. That's it. And that's not the truth. There's a whole range. So the process that I was given was, you identify what your feelings are. And we just went through that. So identify your feelings. Identify next what behavior, what those feelings, what those thoughts, what those belief systems that are underlying the emotions are, and the specific actions that they may take you to exhibit. And if you can sit with that emotion, so take your current emotion for just a minute, take a breath in, notice where it is in your body. Is it in more than one place? Feel how strong it feels, and the feeling may grow as you are connected in with it, and that's okay. Feelings are part of who we are as human beings. They are how we manifest. They're how we create. And so if we're creating from anger, if we're creating from sadness, it's a different way that we're creating than if we're creating from happiness or peacefulness. And so the power of this quantum soul clearing process is that you get to identify what that negative feeling is. This is the point of the beginning of true self-mastery. When you understand what you're feeling, what the root of it is, how it's affecting you, you can then use the third process, which is forgiveness, the forgiveness of yourself and the forgiveness of others. And then the fourth part of this process is reprogramming that inner computer, that operating system, with what you do want. So take your feelings. What are some of the thoughts and the belief systems that are underlying that? Let's just give the intention right now that we're going to forgive ourselves and all others are going to forgive us. So we can release those emotions, and maybe you can feel that beginning to dissipate. And then let's download the exact opposite. So if you're feeling frustration, let's feel peace. Let's feel compassion. Serenity, ease. If you are feeling fear, let's download the frequencies of connectedness, of belonging, of safety and security. And feel as those positive feelings enter into your body, into your brain, and begin to move through every cell of your body, every cell of who you are. This quantum cell clearing process, which we just did a super shortened version of, is a living, breathing technology that continues to evolve even as we humans are evolving. I published my book in 2012, and have been teaching and speaking about the efficacy and the power of this process and how it can change lives. In 2015, I was then introduced to human design. And what I loved about it is that it was like this structure. It allowed people to know how they were put together. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was unique in the way that I can look at a design and I can see where the blocks are. I can see what hidden trauma is embedded into that human design and where it comes from and how to clear it. And we haven't really talked about human design much. But what I love about it is that it's this framework, it's a scaffolding. And as you recognize what's stuck in there, then we can clear it. And it allows your entire design to flow. It opens up the channels and the gates and everything so that your design supports you in a completely different way. So take a breath in. And let's give the intention that you can give yourself some grace, that you can recognize your feelings without judgment, that you're willing to move through this process, that you're willing to take the steps of self-mastery, because when you can master your feelings, when you master your emotions, you master the way that you create your life in the world. So what do you want? Take a minute now and write down what you want to accomplish, what you want to experience, what you want to have in this year, in this month. We just started a whole new month. I'm so excited about the possibilities that come along with new years, with new cycles, with new paradigms. And you are at the brink of a whole new paradigm. You get to choose what it is that you want. And so as you choose consciously, as you choose to clear up the past, as you choose to release the hidden trauma, the hidden programming that up to now has formed what it is that you're what you're experiencing, you can choose what you want to create from this point forward. You are a magnificent creator. And if you learn nothing else from this whole talk, I want you to understand just how powerful you really are. And with this particular process of the quantum soul clearing work that I do, you have the ability to literally transform and create and manipulate in a good way, manifest what it is that you want to experience. You do not have to live with hidden trauma. You do not have to live with what was given to you genetically. You don't have to live with your past, whether it's this lifetime past or a distant lifetime past. You don't have to live with the programming from society, and you do not have to live with the trauma of the past few years. There is healing available and there's transformation available. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you've taken this time to visit with me, to listen to this talk, and to take advantage of your self-mastery skills. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining this inspirational talk on the Take Action Now Summit. Inspired Choices Network and our expert speakers are excited to connect with you and learn about your desires to evolve and grow in 2024. If you'd like to learn more about everything Inspired Choices Network offers, including future summits, please email us at info@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.